Derek Taylor, voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on CJOB, with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. The home opener against Ottawa is Friday night. And we're going to see a similar team, many of the same faces on this Blue Bomber club, but as with professional sports, there's always turnover. What stood out from the preseason for you, DT? I mean, I know there was a lot of new things for the job itself, but just as far as the team goes, you know this Winnipeg football team very well. Many similar faces, but were there a few guys that kind of stood out? And did anyone really surprise you in grabbing a job once the final cuts were made?
Well, I think maybe the big surprise from Bomber camp is Dalton Schoen. You'll see him number 83 when the game kicks off on Friday. We saw him in the preseason as well. Schoen came in and, he was with the number 2s at rookie camp, and he was with the number 2s as a receiver at training camp, and just slowly but surely worked his way up through doing things that coaches liked. When Greg Ellingson needed some time off to deal with a minor injury, there went Dalton Schoen into Ellingson's position at slot back. And then the final day of camp, Ellingson was back and Schoen stayed with the number 1s in place of Janarian Grant. And you think of that and you go, well, Janarian's a guy who has been with the team for a while. Coaches know what he's all about. And yet they put Schoen into the number 1s. It honestly tells you a lot about the work that he has done and what the coaches must think of him. So when Friday kicks off, I fully expect to see Rasheed Bailey, Dalton Schoen, Nick Dembski, Greg Ellingson, Drew Wolotarski being the starting lineup. They're trying to replace 7 bodies, right? There are some that were elite, but there weren't ones at critical positions, superstar critical positions that they need to replace like some other teams do. Drew Desjardins, a guard, Darvin Adams, Kenny Lawler, forgive me, a superstar at a critical position, but they put in Greg Ellingson. Andrew Harris, but I think you and I have talked about where I am with running backs, and running backs to me are more about the offensive line and the scheme that they're asked to play in. Steven Richardson, well, Casey Sales has already been here for a year. DeAndre Alford's gone, but Winston Rose had been back, and they get veteran Tyquan Glass in to be that field side cornerback. So unlike some other teams that had their stars move on to other teams, whether by choice or the player decided to go, the Bombers don't have that, right? Big Hill, Jefferson, Jeff Coate, Stanley Bryant, Jamarcus Hardrick, Zach Collaros, all those guys are back. And to me, that puts the Bombers absolutely in the catbird seat, honestly, a fair bit above every other team in the league.
How would you describe Schoen? And did he sort of make the most of the opportunity when Jalen Saunders was sent packing to take advantage of that spot that maybe was earmarked for a former established CFLer?
Well, Saunders never really got above the second team in practice. As we kind of watched him, he got into the first team for a very little bit, but he never really made the impact. And yet there was Schoen every day. Coaches talk about him running. One of the big things for them isn't necessarily how fast you are, how athletic you are. Coaches like to, when they talk to us, say, we're focused on, are you in the right spot at the right time? And that's what they give Schoen a ton of credit for. Obviously, if you're getting to a CFL camp with the back-to-back Grey Cup champions, you have the requisite level of athleticism and hands and everything else. But being in the right spot at the right time, knowing the playbook. Oh, you went from the field side slot back to the boundary side slot back. Now you need to know different parts of the play. Can you do that? And Schoen has been able to do all that. He had, I think he caught every single one of his targets in the preseason games as well. So it won't pop. If you remember when Brandon Zylstra popped off the screen for the Edmonton Elks back in, 16, 17, it's not that level of this guy's destined to be in the NFL, but he might be really good in a couple of years, right? And he'll get a chance to show it, I think, on Friday.
As far as the backfield goes, you mentioned Andrew Harris. We all know what he meant to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he'll be expected to be leaned on big time with the Toronto Argonauts in his new home. Brady Oliveira and Johnny Augustine, the 2 next ones, both with Canadian passports. How do you see this working? I mean, do you think that there'll be a relatively, will it be a 60-40 split, a 70-30? Or do they start with one guy, give it to him consistently and repeatedly, and one guy is more a true backup to the other?
I think more the one guy, and then the other guy will be more or less a true backup to the other. I feel like that's what most teams would want to do. They bring different skill sets, right? Oliveira is bigger. Meanwhile, Johnny Augustine is smaller and faster. Like Augustine is just lightning quick. all throughout camp, we've seen Oliveira as the number one. And so there's no reason for me to think that anything's going to be different come Friday. It feels like they would like Oliveira to take the reins and be the number one back. But there's so many of us, myself included. First time I interviewed Johnny Augustine in training camp, I said, please consider this my official application for vice president of the Johnny Augustine fan club. Because that cat, of any back currently in the CFL, any back continuing in the CFL, the highest yards per carry rate of any running back.
He's so productive.
Yards.
Every time you give him the football, he makes something happen.
Right, and so much of that for me is just, what do you do when the hole is there? If the hole is not there, everybody's pooched. Even the best running back, John Cornish in his prime, if there wasn't a hole, he was done. But man, what you saw in some of those preseason snaps was line opens up a massive hole, and Augustine boop is through it and has 15 yards before you blink. You go, that is something to harness, and that's the strength of this offensive line. When you look at run blocking numbers, there's adjusted line yards, the stat I co-opted from Football Outsiders and just brought to the CFL. Winnipeg's the best run blocking line in the CFL, narrowly ahead of Montreal last season. You open those holes, guys get through it fast. It's going to work great, honestly, no matter who it is. Neither guy brings the entire package that Andrew Harris did, the consistent check down guy, and the Andrew Harris. I don't know it as well as coaches, but I don't remember backs better than Andrew Harris in pass protection. Oh, the guy's now coming from the far side. I'll go get him. Boom, we're fine. Zach can get the ball off. I don't remember a back better than Andrew Harris. These guys will have to pick up that role as well. But as far as running the football, I'm a huge Johnny Augustine guy, and honestly, I'm not alone. So I think a lot of us are curious to see, when will Johnny get a shot.
You beat me to the next question, DT, and that's a sign of a great answer. But I was going to ask you about the pass protection. Was wondering, does Brady Oliveira have an advantage in that area of the game, and is that why he might have maybe a little bit of a leg up, especially in the regular package? Because the bottom line is, everyone else can play well. If something happens to Zach Collaros, we got serious problems here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and that'll be a key factor. I'm sure that is a key factor for coaches, right? Like we talked about with Dalton Schoen, are you in the right place at the right time for a back when you're needed? When you see that, okay, well, they showed 4, but actually 2 more are creeping up, and now I got to go get one of the guys on the edge. Do you get the right guy? Because the quarterback is the thing in professional football. It's one of the things that coaches won't explicitly tell us certain stuff in the media. It's one of the things I just kind of assume, though I can't prove, and I don't necessarily have the knowledge to show it, that maybe that's where Oliveira gets the consistent advantage over Johnny Augustine. Again, I don't have anything to back that up, but there's got to be some reason why coaches look at Oliveira and then they look at Johnny Augustine, again, 6.8 yards per carry for his career, and go, it's Brady. There's got to be several things. So that's one thing that we'll be looking for, who's got late blitzers and how are they picked up, and is it just a function of size? Like, so much of blocking, they'll tell us, is guys want to. You got to step up in the hole and get the blitzing Avery Williams on Friday. But how much of it is 190 pounds versus 220 pounds in a running back body?
Yeah, and by the way, folks, our DraftKings contest is open. We're over 40 people, so if you want to get in, and listen, DT, we live in sort of a fantasy football world. And, we'll talk about touches, we'll talk about touchdowns, yards. The one thing that's not as sexy, that doesn't get talked about very much, is picking up a key block and allowing your quarterback to throw for it. And certainly that'll be a big part of it. Speaking of the quarterbacks, we know Zach is the man. What did you see from the guys competing to be the backup in training camp? What do you make of the depth chart? And, if the Bombers do have to go to their number 2, where's the confidence level?
I think this applies to a few teams. I think if they have to go to their number 2, let's go trade for Trevor Harris. Like, Trevor Harris is the one piece that's kind of sitting out there in the CFL right now. He's in Montreal, and he's the backup to Vernon Adams Jr. And to me, he's a guy that, if you lost your starting quarterback, to avoid an absolute disaster, this would apply to, Hamilton. This would apply to probably, wouldn't it be weird to see him back in Ottawa? But to me, in Winnipeg, if you lost Zach Collaros, the drop from Zach to any quarterback is going to be big, but to Drew Brown and to Dakota Prukop, both guys have had some flashes in preseason, Brown and Prukop. Both guys I wonder about over the course of the season just because we haven't seen it. I was talking to Dakota in camp, and I said, it feels like you're at the same spot Cody Fajardo was in 2019 of you've been in the league a while, you're tremendous at running the football and in the quarterback sneak game and things like that, but we're not sure what you would look like for a full season as a passer. For Fajardo, obviously it worked out fantastically in 2019. There's no reason that couldn't be Dakota Prukop's future, but there's no guarantee that, this thing will happen twice in a 4-year span, right? So I feel like if it's me and I'm the GM of the Bombers and Zach Collaros goes down, I start looking at options because this is a team that is primed to win, and the quarterback's the most important position. And I just kind of need somebody who is, honestly, 2018 Matt Nicholas could probably be a Grey Cup favorite with this roster versus where the rest of the CFL is and the questions that exist in the rest of the CFL. So I think Trevor Harris becomes an interesting pivot point in the CFL this year, and in the disaster scenario maybe for the Bombers too.
Is Prukop the guy that'll be vulturing all the touchdowns at Winnipeg starting running backs and going for double digits on the 1 yard line?
Vernon Adams is, of course, the ultimate vulture in the CFL for fantasy fans. Dakota Prukop will be one to watch. I'm curious to see how they will do short yardage situations, how much they'll just leave Zach in, because Zach is absolutely fine in those scenarios. But yeah, Dakota Prukop would be the if you're playing in the DraftKings league, he would be the vulture that you worry about.
Derek Taylor, voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on OB, is with us. Kicking game's always been a big topic, certainly for the last couple of years. Looks like Mark Leggio is going to be the guy, both kicking and punting. What did you see over the course of training camp, the preseason? And I would imagine, certainly from where I'm standing, this is TBA going forward. See how it goes. But how did he win the job?
Yeah, Leggio. Honestly, Leggio, I have a fair bit of confidence in him. When you adjust punting for field position and stuff like that, Leggio was slightly above average last season, which is good. There weren't a lot of punters above average, and then Cody Grace in Calgary and Richie Leone in Ottawa were just miles better than everybody else. But Mark Leggio was an above average punter, so that's a good start. His kickoffs in the preseason, they were good. His field goals. I'll keep trumpeting the stat till we get more information. He was 5-8 of converts. You can't be that way. That cost your team a couple of points on average. He was 5 of 8 on field goals too, but his average field goal distance attempted last year was 45 yards. For kickers like Rene Paredes and Boris Bidet, their average field goal attempt was 35 yards. So Leggio, his average kick was asked to be 10 yards longer, which I go, okay, that's a lot, because that's not asked of any kicker, over the course of a season. So he's going to get the smaller opportunities and make those, and we'll all forget about, the fact that he missed 3 kicks of 40 plus, whatever it was. But two, like his numbers in college, if you translated them to a CFL rate, he looked really good. Like he has everything you need in a kicker. Maybe no more whatever that attempted sneak was in the West Final, maybe no more of that. But Leggio kind of has everything that you need. And I feel like, don't look at the fact that he was 68% on his field goals in 2021, because there's a lot that was asked of him and a lot that goes into that number. He looks really good. Coach O'Shea talks about, consistency and fixing anything along the way. He says he likes what Leggio and Ali Mortada have done, so he's got confidence in them. We'll see how. I mean, there's no reason to think that Leggio can't be a really good kicker in this league, because he's got the college track record. He just, in my mind, a few more attempts, and if we see him hit if he gets a few 27-yarders, we're all going to forget about the fact that he was 5 of 8 in 2021.
DT, let's move on to the other side of the football. A couple significant departures in DeAndre Alford and Stove Richardson, among others, from the defense, but the key core is back. But a big injury to Mercy Maston over the course of the preseason. How's the defense shaping up for the Ottawa Redblacks on Friday night?
Well, you've got the two Terminators on the outside, right? Jackson Jeffcoat and Willie Jefferson. So that's a great place to start. Jeffcoat, as the injury report says, been dealing with an ankle injury, hasn't practiced a ton, but I feel like he's one of those guys you probably need to cut his foot off to keep him from playing. So no reason to expect that's a problem. Adam Big Hill in the middle, Kyrie Wilson, like their front six is going to be good. You replace Steven Richardson with Casey Sales. Sales is a guy who performed and would get pressure when he was in that unit when Richardson was not. So while he may not be Stove, Casey Sales showed really well. The back six, okay, you lose DeAndre Alford, but you replace him with a 4-year veteran in Taekwon Glass at that field side cornerback spot. And, it didn't go particularly well for Glass in Montreal last season, but that's a guy with experience and, again, knows where to be and knows how to play. He and Nick Taylor seem to work well together. I feel like that's going to be absolutely fine because your lockdown side of Winston Rose and Dietrich Nichols looks perfect. Nichols had a rep yesterday where this is kind of the stuff that we learn as football fans, but Ellingson was running a corner route against him, and Nichols kind of went, oh, this is going to be a corner route. So he didn't follow Ellingson. He just went, okay, I know where the ball is going, and I'm going to get there. And he got there, and he broke it up. And I thought, well, that's super smart that you ran to where one, that you knew where the ball was going to be, and two, that you just ran there and didn't follow the receiver. You're like, well, that's smart. I like that from a second-year player. I love it. So the back six, Don Rutledge, who says, call me Rut, is the guy to watch, right? He's the one filling in for Mercy Maston, who, essentially is filling in for Alden Darby, right, who was the Sam last year. Rutledge is a good-sized guy, 6'2", probably goes about 210, 215, so not Derek Moncrief size, but bigger than most Sam linebackers in the league. And like he said, I've played a lot of positions. I played, halfback, and I've played corner, and I played Mike linebacker in this, and he's been jumping into drills in different spots wherever he's asked. He looks like a guy who's excited to be here. We'll see how it goes when an offense is really trying to kill you. But when you look at it on the whole, when Brandon Alexander is back, currently that'll be Malcolm Thompson, I think, for Friday's game. When Brandon Alexander is back, as far as back sixes go in the CFL, that's probably in the top 3 with teams like Hamilton and BC. So I think it's going to be just fine, despite the fact you lose a guy to the NFL.
All right, DT, pregame show Friday, 5:30 p.m. before the 7:30 kickoff. Make sure to get there early and be in your seat for the another Grey Cup banner raising. 3 quick hits on the CFL because you follow this league and cover it as closely as anybody. The Bombers are the Grey Cup favorite on the betting odds. The Saskatchewan Riders are number 2. Should they be? Are they the biggest threat to the Bombers 3P?
No, they're not. No.
Who is?
Lost players. Ottawa. Just saying it. Ottawa. Ottawa/Calgary. If Bo Levi Mitchell is right, Calgary's going to be a problem in the West Division. But Ottawa and a healthy Calgary.
Okay, well, this is a perfect segue into the next one. Speaking of odds boards, I've never seen this before. In the East right now, if you look at win totals for all 4 teams, they're between 8.5 and 9.5, which tells us that there is parity, at least perceived parity, unlike any time we've seen before. Who wins the East? And I guess part of it was how much better is Ottawa going to be? It sounds like you think a lot better.
Ottawa added so much talent to an established coaching staff. I think Ottawa wins the East and, jump on it because you can still get it at a real good price. I think Montreal is really going to struggle this season. So to me, Ottawa, Hamilton, Toronto. Toronto was 7-1 in 1-score games last year. So though I like their roster, they're going to, in my mind, regress a little bit because 1-score wins tend to regress the following season. Ottawa, Hamilton, Toronto, Montreal in the East. And Montreal, I don't think they push Edmonton for the worst team in the league, but Montreal, it's going to be a struggle for them.
Well, you mentioned Edmonton. John Hodge and I were kicking this around yesterday. To me, the most intriguing teams this year, and I guess probably we should put Ottawa in, but I'm thinking of the BC Lions and the Elks, the BC Canadian quarterback situation, and of course, everything that comes with Chris Jones. What do you make of BC and Edmonton going in? And is there a team that interests you more than the other based on the uncertainties going into week 1?
If Nathan Rourke plays at a Matt Nichols 2018 level, BC is going to be a problem too. I was just looking before I came on with you. That back 6 and that front 6 on defense, oh my gosh. And then, oh, by the way, Lucky Whitehead, Brian Burnham, Dominic Rhymes, Javon Katoy, BC could, if they get just not even like average quarterbacking, but seventh best quarterback in the CFL, BC has a roster that's ready to go. And I think a coach that can take them there. Edmonton, I just don't think they have man for man the players that the rest of the league has. To me, that's the fifth best roster in the East, or pardon me, in the West. And you saw it with Chris Jones, his first year in Saskatchewan, 5 wins, but planted the seeds for what was a real nice increase the following season. To me, that's this year. And then, oh, by the way, figure out your quarterback and just know that it should be Nick Arbuckle based on what we saw in the preseason. You got to go with Arbuckle. But Edmonton, I think, finishes last and gets the first overall pick in the draft.
Derek, thanks so much for doing this. People are fired up for the season. Can't wait to hear you and your new home on the 680 CJOB, the home of the Bombers. We'll look forward to the pregame coverage on Friday. And then, of course, your first call, hopefully one of a very, I'm not sure if you'll be able to get to Bob's longevity, but here's to game one of a very long, illustrious time here calling the best team in the Canadian Football League.
I love it. Thanks, brother. Grey Cup preview on Friday with Winnipeg and Ottawa. I love this.
Let's do it. Thanks so much, DT. Have a great call on Friday.
Thanks, buddy.